This is BBC Sussex
with Mark Carter.
Let's turn though firstly at 11 minutes past 7 to our top story this morning, and the Sussex couple telling their story to an inquiry into the worst scandal in NHS history.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, each time you hear a horrific story like this, you think it can't get worse, and then it does. And we're talking about human beings who have literally been slaughtered.
Yeah, Mark Ward and his husband Richard from Peacehaven will become the first gay couple to give evidence to the infected blood inquiry later. The inquiry began last year and is looking into how thousands of patients were given contaminated blood products during the 1970s and the 1980s. Mark was born with haemophilia and contracted both the HIV and hepatitis as a child through infected blood. And he says he's faced a lifetime of being misjudged and stigmatised ever since. We'll speak live to him and to Richard in a moment. First up, though, Leanne Lawless has their story.
Together, they've been campaigning for justice for decades. And now the time has come for them to share their story with the world. At the age of 3, Mark Ward was diagnosed with haemophilia, a genetic condition that stops the body making blood clots. At the age of 14, he was told he'd been infected with HIV after being given contaminated blood. He says over the years, he feels he's been judged and stigmatised by some people in the NHS.
They've assumed that I've acquired HIV because I'm a gay man. And when I've then told them, well, actually, no, I was a little boy infected with contaminated blood products, their attitude changes and they become compassionate. And that's the thing that we have to tackle, is the stigma.
Mark and his husband will give their evidence at the public inquiry this week. It's looking at why thousands of people were given blood infected with HIV and hepatitis viruses during the 1970s and 80s, and how their lives and their families' lives have been affected over the years.
When we first go into the hospital as a couple for a review or whatever it is, had we been a heterosexual couple, that couple would have been spoken to, or the other partner would have been spoken to about any risks to them. They didn't want to engage with me as Mark's husband.
There's always, for me, this element of like a shadow, a darkness around me. That's never gone. But for me, I'm alive, so I can speak and tell my story.
Mark and Richard say they hope speaking out about their experiences will help change attitudes for future generations.
Leanne Lawless reporting at 7:14. Well, Mark and Richard both join us now from London. We'll start with Mark. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Gosh, this day has been a long time coming. How are you feeling?
I've got butterflies, I won't lie. Yeah, when you've been calling for something like a public inquiry for, going on sort of 15 years, and then here it is, actually in a few hours, I'm going to be giving evidence to said public inquiry. It's a bit daunting, but there's also a lot of pride.
Yes, there must be. You've been through so much. Just explain the impact on your health.
Well, obviously, the impact on my health is that with the haemophilia, you see, it wasn't just one injection. We were being treated with infected blood products, and when you had a batch, it would be almost an injection every other day, and that just kept reinfecting you. So over the course of a 10-year period, you had various hepatitis viruses and other pathogens along with HIV. And of course, with the developments in medicine today, yes, the HIV meds are keeping me alive. If I'm ill, I can die. If I stop taking the medication for any reason, like they stop working, I can die. So your mortality it's constantly reminded, it's constantly with you twice a day when I take my medication.
Mark, you've very much led this crusade, I guess you would describe it, for justice for victims like yourself. What is the definition of justice?
I think that it has to be recognition for the suffering and what people have actually gone through. There also has to be now, because the time delay, if it had happened when we called for it and people called for it 30 years ago, things differently could have been done. Obviously compensation has to be paid, But for me, I want to see the people who caused this, the people who made the decisions. And let's be honest here, that back then, haemophiliacs were deemed to be cheaper than chimpanzees, so for their research. So you've got a great deal of contempt for our community. That has to be addressed as well. We want to know why.
And just before we talk to your husband, can you give us an idea of the support that Richard has provided to you?
Oh, he literally is my rock. He's my world. He is the reason I get out of bed and fight this battle, because this is about us, our future, and alongside this battle for justice with the public inquiry and the contaminated blood, as you've covered, we've been also calling for equality, because the crossover between the gay community and the haemophilia community, the two were basically put to fight each other by the government.
Okay, well, let's have a quick word with Richard just before we let you both get on with your day. So if Richard is there for us this morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for being with us. I just want to really, time is tight, but I just really want to pick up on that aspect we heard a few moments ago in our report of how effectively when people first meet Mark, often the reaction is, oh, that's you, is it? That's what you're going through. And then suddenly it's, well, actually, I contracted it by this way. And suddenly the sympathy begins. That must be soul destroying.
Actually, it makes me angry. People who claim to be compassionate don't seem to be able to show that compassion without an excuse first, if that makes sense.
Totally. And well, I wish you both all the very best for today. I know clearly the nerves must be there, but I just hope that all goes well for you today and you have your moment today.